And the thing I love about acrylic is what a lot of people don't like. It dries really quickly, and it just can't dry fast enough for me. So I'm a layer, one over the next, one over the next, and that's what gouache is with it. So I can make a quick sketch. You just put an underpainting on it, and then start bopping in shapes and colors.
Well, we're taking you way up north to the far, far west of the Canadian continent to Brian Buckrell. Brian, welcome to whatever we call the show. We don't have a name.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. Thanks for the invitation. It's great.
Brian and I met at, where did we meet? It was
Paint the Adirondacks, the last one that you were able to do.
Oh, that's right. And we painted together, and you were painting out of your van. You had your van all outfitted and
wow, yeah,
traveled and lived in your van. And I discovered what a good painter you are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. You were very kind to me.
And you paint in acrylics, don't you?
I paint in acrylics primarily and water mixable oil. Primarily acrylics.
All right, terrific. Yeah. Well, what are you going to do for us today?
Well, I've made a change of plan in the last couple of days. I was going to do a demo, but you got lots of those, particularly in the last little while with acrylics. And I'm listening to you talking about not just art, but the artist in him or herself, the learning of art and so on. And it sounds like a thrust that you are exploring and looking sort of at this whole game in a different light. I teach quite a bit. And I didn't start painting until I was past 65. First time I ever picked up a paintbrush. Never did it before or drawing like that. And a lot of people have taken my workshops to not just talk about painting, but they want to know my story because they are at a point in their life where they would like to explore this and find out if it's worthwhile. How did I accelerate my learning early on and that kind of thing? So I thought I would share that experience.
Oh, that's great. Well, there is hope, isn't there?
Well, I hope there's hope. Yeah.
I think that just to talk about that subject just briefly, because this is a huge issue and it's a huge passion. I think there are two major issues that become blood clots in the system of people who are pursuing art. That's probably not a great example, but I think that first off, there's this sense that we have to be talented to be artists, and it's like we don't say, well, you have to have instant talent to become a brain surgeon or even a musician. We know that you have to learn the notes. We know that you have to learn the scales. We know there's a process of learning and practicing, and that it does, some people may have natural talent, but a lot of people don't. They learn it. And so I think overcoming that, and then there's this sense of, well, it's too late, right? I'm over 60 or 65 or whatever your number is, and it's too late, and it's never too late.
Yeah. I'll comment on that just briefly, if I may, because I am talented. My talent is I really want to learn how to do this. And that's it's a passion that you've got to have. And that's my talent. And I've got a strong work ethic. I'm disciplined. And I really want to learn how to do this. And I don't have many years left. And so, damn it, I'm gonna do the best I can.
Well, you need to stop saying that first off, because you might have a lot of years left. And if you tell your brain that,
it's all relative.
You got to stop that. Yeah. Okay. So, but I think that's right. And that seems to be what it is talent seems to be the tenacity is just never giving up. Every person when they're learning art is going to get frustrated at some point. And every great artist, including the greatest artists alive today and including the greatest artists ever alive, every great artist started out not knowing how to paint or draw, and they did a lot of bad things that we never see. And so we just have to understand that that's just part of that process.
And how special it is, in my experience at least, and I think I share that with others, to have that passion at the later stage of life. When you're in your senior years, to have something like this to get up in the morning for and to drive you, I think it's wonderful. It's
Absolutely.
Been wonderful for me.
Well, I'm looking forward to learning about how we can kind of get up to speed fast, and so We'll have you back in just a second. I'm going to drop off,
Okay.
make a couple quick announcements, and then we're going to bring you back.
I got into painting after many years of doing other things. We were living in Ontario for most of our life, and we retired out to Vancouver Island 20 years ago.
What did you do for a living? Just curious.
I'm a veterinarian, or I was a veterinarian. I was a professor at a university, University of Guelph back in Ontario.
Awesome.
And ran a farm and did a whole bunch of stuff. It was a busy life, and it did not include art in any way, shape, or form, from galleries to doing it myself or anything like that. So the art game was a whole new thing to me. What happened after a few years of being out here, I got into some health issues, and I wasn't able to be as physical as I really enjoyed being out here. Well, my wife dragged me kicking and screaming to a drawing on the right side of your brain class. I was 65, going on 66 at that point. First time I'd ever been exposed to anything like that, and I really enjoyed it. And then she encouraged me to take a acrylic class at a local school, and I played with that. And I could come home at night and play with these things, and I was really fascinated by it, and just simply enjoyed pushing this stuff around and playing what if. I did that for a little while, and then we had the opportunity to go back to Ontario to visit our kids, and I went to the McMichael Art Gallery. First time I'd ever been in an art gallery in my life.
And where is the McMichael Art Gallery?
Art Gallery is in Kleinburg, just outside of Toronto. And it's a beautiful facility. It's an outstanding gallery, but it's the home of the Group of Seven and Tom Thompson. Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned them before, and Charlie Easton mentioned them when he was on the show. They are sort of credited with a sort of Canadian statement in art. They were a group of illustrators back in the 1920s that changed how art was sort of perceived within Canada. They wanted to get away from the European influence and create their own statement. And I was just blown away when I went in there. I'd never seen anything like it. And it wasn't just the places they painted, but it was how they painted it. It had color, it had vitality. I always thought that art was kind of tight and not particularly interesting or fun to look at, but this just excited the heck out of me. I was also interested in who they were, because they were a bunch of young guys. They were outdoorsmen, and they paddled and they climbed and they hiked in the same regions of Canada and Ontario that I did 50 years later. We paddled the same rivers and this sort of thing. And that kind of bonded me to them a little bit. So I came out of there after having moved to Vancouver Island, which is just a spectacular spot for scenery. I do paddling and climbing and a whole bunch of stuff out here. And my wife and I traveled across the country twice a year to see our kids in our RV. So I had tremendous exposure to the Canadian landscape, which is beautiful, as it is in the States as well. And I asked myself, could I do this? Could I make this my point of interest for the rest of my life? Not that I had any commercial intent. I just simply wanted something to fill my life, something that would make it interesting and give me a fulfillment that I wasn't sort of finding in any other way. And so I decided, yep, this is what I'm going to try to do. And I made the commitment. I told my wife, this is what I'm going to do. I told my friends, this is what I was going to do. And so I was stuck. I had to do this. So I spent a year exploring, reading, trying to determine what it would take to become a competent artist, a competent painter, and hopefully from there progress to an artist, being creative. I studied a great deal. I read a great deal. I talked to a lot of people. I was from a university background and was quite familiar with curriculums and so on. And I thought, why isn't art learned in a curriculum format, just like any other profession is? There are these skills that have got to be learned, and there must be a 1, 2, 3, 4 progression, as you would get in the legal profession, going from one class to the next and so forth, to try to build up to a point where you've got some sense of competence in the skill that you're after. It seemed to me there's an obvious marriage between craft, the skill of pushing paint around, and then the knowledge, the information to push that paint around properly. And so I invested in a lot of learning. And one of the best things I did, I joined the Virtual Art Academy, Barry Rabel's program.
Yep.
And back then, it predated YouTube and that, so it was hard copy. It was online, but I mean, I had a stack of papers about a foot deep that I had to read and study, and I spent a whole year on that, and it was wonderful, and it helped me in a way. I mean, I came from a very clear black and white background. Everything was peer reviewed, and it was either right or not right, or believed to be. And I got into the art game, and it was such a subjective thing. I found it kind of challenging to understand, what was true, what was good, what was bad. So
Right.
spending time on that really, really helped me a lot. Then, after I sort of devoted that year to the knowledge thing, I thought I needed craft. I needed the skill of moving the paint around. And I looked at different options out there, and I ended up joining the Jeffrey Watts Atelier in Encinitas, California. I was 66. My instructors were in their 20s and early 30s. And they beat the hell out of me, and it was just wonderful. I spent 6 months there, full time, 7 days a week, and they beat me up.
So you were physically there. This was not
I
online.
was I was physically there. This
Yeah.
predated, and Jeff and I had talked a lot about him moving on to that next phase of his life, which he's very much involved with today.
Yeah.
But it was me, the old guy, sitting down with all these energized young guys and gals, and it was just a fabulous experience.
Jeff is a great teacher and a great guy.
He's got more friggin' energy than anybody I know. He just wear you out listening to him, but it's just so well-meaning, and yeah, it's good. And then from there, I started taking a bunch of workshops, and I did what you're not supposed to do. I ended up taking over 40 workshops in a period of about four or 5 years. We would go down to the States with our RV, and I would line up workshops from California through New Mexico and Arizona, just one after the next. And everybody says you shouldn't do that. But when you don't know anything really about what the possibilities are, what choices you can make, I needed that exposure, and it ended up really, really helping me to find who
I don't think
wanted to be.
there's a shouldn't to that.
No, yeah.
No, I've experienced it personally. When I lived in California, I studied with two artists every single week. I studied on Mondays with Camille Preswatic, who is a colorist, a Henry colorist, or Henri, maybe is the way some people say it. And then I studied with Charles H. White, and who is a much more of a tight realist. And it was the polar opposite in terms of what they were teaching in some ways, but some of the principles were the same. And it kind of kept my brain on fire. And so I didn't get bored with either one. And I learned a lot. I think, the danger of going to a lot of different workshops is that, you might be a little schizophrenic, but the benefit is that you might find exactly what you're looking for, because sometimes the search to find your own voice and your own style is going to be through a lot of different people.
And I think a lot of people are worried that you're coming home trying to paint like that other person, or the person that you took the lesson from. And I think it's important to experiment with our ideas. But I found over time that if I paint enough, I'll always come back to me. I can't not be me.
Yeah.
And time makes that work for me.
Yeah.
Camille was one of my first workshops. That was serious stuff. I remember that week very well. So I come back from there, and I spent a couple of years just doing this kind of stuff. I painted family and friends. I had no interest in commercializing. I didn't need money. I wanted the fun and the adventure, and the adventure of just improving my skills and trying to find out what I could become. So it was a lot of this stuff, just painting, a lot of portraiture and so on from there. And I did plein air, and lots of plein air. Kathy and I traveled the country in our RV 4 or 5 months every year. So we were just going all over North America, and I was painting, and developing some sort of sense of confidence and relaxing in how I was approaching the thing. And I just simply had fun. I came can't think. I mean, there are so many seniors there traveling the world in their North America in their RVs, and art just adds so much to that adventure that I can't encourage it enough with it. So those are the two things I was focusing on. But after a while, my wife said, like, we got all this junk you're accumulating in the house, all these darn paintings, and we got to find a way to get rid of them. And I had no intention of commercializing, but she said, we're going to have to find something to do with this stuff. And I realized that I couldn't continue to grow unless I could continue to paint. And I was at a point that I couldn't continue to paint unless I got rid of all the stuff that was accumulating, all the paintings that were accumulating in our house. Like, I had an unbelievable amount of paintings, all framed to look at and so on. So I got the opportunity to get into some of these summer art festivals, and I did very well. It surprised me. I didn't know how people would respond to what I was doing, but the response was beyond what I expected. And we did that, and then we set up a gallery in my garage, and we were on a busy street that people would come by in the summertime. Tourists and that were coming out to Vancouver Island, and the sales just blew me away. And I started to think, maybe there is something here. Maybe I have something that I could push in a different way. I mean, it stroked my ego to be able to sell. It was kind of fun. I didn't need the money. It was fun to have the money with it. And I invested that in continuing to take workshops and do other things. So it was a self-feeding system that was developing, and it was really, really fun, really nice. And then somehow galleries got a hold of me. I ended up going into about 20 galleries over a couple of years, and I never knocked on one door. Everybody approached me, which was very nice. It makes it easier if they think they want you. But I had some very bad gallery experiences and some wonderful gallery experiences, and I've cut them down to about 6 now. And I have just wonderful galleries that I deal with. We've got personal relationships. We're business partners and friends, and that's the way it should be.
Yep.
With it. But there was some bad situations at times, and new people.
So can you give any advice on how to avoid bad situations?
I don't know, because I thought I was smarter than to get into the bad situations. I got into galleries that were respectable, that never paid me. And I still have never been paid. And I'm not going to chase them. It's just the profile of that is just bad in the community. I got into galleries that were selling other people's paintings with my frames on them. And my frames were all disappearing, and they were far enough away that I would only see them every couple of years. This was in the Calgary area. And to me, it was the cost of doing business at that point and the cost of learning. I don't know how to avoid it. And I wanted to share some of that stuff on Facebook, but I was discouraged from doing it, and I decided not to. So when I found out other artists I knew were going into those galleries, I always sent them a message advising them. Most of them just ignored it and went in anyhow because they were so hungry to get into galleries. So,
well, the one thing that happens though is that artists talk, and word gets out. I hear about all of them, and I know which galleries. If somebody calls me, I know which galleries to avoid, and I know which ones steal from artists. I know which ones play those games that you talked about. I also know the ones that are totally trustworthy. And so, over time, they end up biting themselves in the behind, because eventually, the word will get out. Now, there's always plenty of artists and that they can move on to the next ones. But I think overall, the good artists they're going to stay away ultimately.
Yeah. As a new person, not growing up in the art game with the art community, and most seniors that I've talked to that are interested in sort of trying to follow my path, they're the same way. They're quite naive about this side of the art game, and so they're at risk here, and I don't really know how to help them out except let people know that this stuff happens, and do your homework. Contact artists that are in that gallery and get their feedback, their experiences, and so forth with it. Can't think of what else you'd do.
Yeah.
So I, on the surface, was doing pretty well. I was selling, I was in galleries, I was happy, I was enjoying myself, but I was just full of self-doubt. I didn't think my work was sort of up to snuff. It was loud and almost whimsical. And so I continued to take workshops and just try to get other people's exposure to what was happening with me. And then, one of the things that everybody asks me in the workshops is how to develop your style. And I think every teacher get asked the same thing. And for me, it was the same as everybody else. I just simply painted enough and was exposed to enough different options, possibilities, that over time, those that were suited to me, whether it's the kind of brush or the surface or whatever I was working with, over time it just got narrowed down and down and down, and it became who I am today. And that's just,
I think
to me, a
that
natural progression.
to that point, your style finds you.
Exactly.
I think when you set out to find a style, it's kind of like setting out to find your signature. Your signature finds you. You just you might, when you're a kid, practice it, but ultimately it becomes part of just who you are. And your handwriting is the same way. So I think that that's something we're all looking for, but it's looking for us.
And with workshops where people are sort of at the early stages, and it's not uncommon to find the first question they get in the workshop is, how do I develop a style? And you've got a problem person there, and that you have to back them off. It's about learning. It's not about going to that end product. They want to get into a gallery right away. They want to get on Facebook right away.
Yeah, well, you can't blame them.
Can't do it. Absolutely not. But you got to help them. You got to try to avoid their need to find commercial success right up front.
Well, that's why, Brian, that's why mentorship is so important, because, mentors have been through these things. They've lived through the problems, and they can save everybody a lot of headaches. If you have someone that you're considering a mentor, you got to listen to them.
That's a perfect lead into the next slide, Eric. Thank you. So I took a lot of workshops, and in the last couple of years, the workshops I took gave me satisfaction that the approach I was taking, the tack I was taking, was okay. It was interesting enough and good enough that I should continue on that tack and just refine it, just strengthen my work, my compositions, and all of those things that everybody does to get better over time. And I had some wonderful instructors, in Ken DeWard from Maine, Marc Grambois, the Quebec painter, wonderful painter. And then sort of my hero was the late Robert Guin. And I don't know if you're familiar with Robert's work and his teaching.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly familiar with the newsletters that he did every week, and his daughter continues.
Yes, wonderful guy, my hero. And he's the guy that took me aside. I got into his last workshop before he died, and he spent some time with me, and I expressed my doubt, my concern, and I said, I really want to be content with what I'm doing, and I'm not. And he sort of encouraged me to settle down and just toe the line. What you're doing is an obvious path. Continue with that path, and he helped me a lot. And other experiences like you, the adventure that I had painting the Adirondacks with your gang almost 2 years ago now was one of the great things in my short painting career. Being with all of those other people, seeing everybody else's approaches, that was a unique experience for me. But also that you recognized that my stuff was a little different, and it was okay. Cynthia Rosen was just wonderful to me. And I came away from that feeling much more collected and confident in the approach that I was taking. And since that time, I have never thought again about doubt. I have no more other than individual paintings and how to make them
fabulous. That's fabulous.
The approach I'm taking is my approach. And this is who I am. And I am in the take it or leave it stage. This is the stuff I do. It's fairly big, it's bold, it's loud. I try to calm down. I try to have more quiet spots in my paintings and so on, but I can't. The brush just picks up paint without me doing anything, and it grabs it and puts it on the canvas for me, and it just won't stop. And so this is who I am. And
you're a self-driving car. It just does it for you.
Yeah. I'm at that stage in life that I just gotta give up and just be me and stop worrying about trying to be somebody else with it.
That's fabulous.
And this is the plein air stuff I like doing, and it's the same sort of thing. It's I can't just simply capture what I'm seeing. I have to interpret it. It just doesn't happen with me. And the two on the left, maybe it's on your left too, are two of the ones that I did with you at the Adirondacks and these guys here, and
Yeah.
that was just a wonderful experience for me. But all of my stuff, I mean, I look at a scene and I watch people painting around me, and everyone is trying to create and capture the image as they see it, as correct as possible. And I just can't do that. And I have, frankly, no interest in doing that. It's the outcome that's important, and the outcome has got to be unique and interesting. And so I've
Fabulous.
given up, and
Fabulous.
that's kind of who I am today. This is something that I've started a few years ago, and I expressed this to my students, and I recommend it highly. These are 12 by 12s. About 4 years ago, one of my galleries started a 12 by 12 Christmas sale at just reasonable prices, $300 Canadian, which is not a lot of money. And I said, no, like, this just doesn't interest me. And they said, well, try a few. So I did half a dozen, and the darn things all sold. And the next year I did 2 dozen. This year I've done almost 100 of these.
Well,
These take me half an hour. So I'll often start my day with a little 12 by 12. I'll do 2 of them, and it just gets me loosened up. And I do them out of my imagination. And that it's a wonderful learning thing to just capture what you've learned, particularly from plein air. It just sort of builds up in your memory and your experiences. And these small sketches, these small colorful things that I do, I get a lot of satisfaction from them. They give me ideas to transfer over into my larger canvases. And initially I thought, there's no benefit to doing this, but these go out onto walls. Like I've got 100 paintings on people's walls this year from doing these things. And
well, the other thing is that 12 by 12s kind of send a contemporary message, don't they? They fit more into a contemporary environment than a traditional shape.
I mean, I can't believe the interest in these things,
Yeah.
and it's very satisfying. But it's also like it's kind of like lost leadering in a grocery store. They go at a reasonable price. They get hung on walls. From that, I get commissions. I get people coming to the galleries and buying bigger pieces and so forth. So I really have. This has been a very positive experience for me, and I encourage this as a learning and also as a marketing opportunity for folks.
Yeah. Are you part of the Daily Paintworks?
I am, but I've kind of stopped participating. It did very well, and initially I took one of Carol's early workshops, and I really enjoyed her, and that was successful for me. But now that I live in Ontario in the summer, and in BC in the winter, I've got half my paintings are back in Ontario, and so like I just had 2 people contact me about Christmas paintings they want to have. Well, those are in Ontario, and I can't do anything about it. So I kind of cooled off a little bit. I sell enough to cover my monthly cost of being involved with it, and so I'm okay with that. And there's some marketing exposure there from it as well. So it's a great thing that they're doing, and it was very positive for me at the beginning. And it could be again, I guess, if I chose to do that.
Yeah.
With it. So I got into teaching, and the teaching I do is based as much as anything on knowledge. I do a lot of focusing on information, on knowledge, that trying to build some understanding of that it's not just about pushing paint. You got to read, you got to study, you've got to develop all of this stuff that's in your head as well as on your brush if you're going to grow. And I can't go to these workshops without being asked about sort of my career, so to speak, my short career, and the approach that I'm outlining here today. I mean, if you look at my workshop, it's almost all women. It's pretty much all women, and it's pretty much all retired or senior women. Many of them getting up into their middle 80s, and it's just wonderful to see the energy that those people have, and what art adds to their life, particularly now with COVID. It's really impressive. I do a lot of plein air, and I do 2 days of indoors and 3 days outdoors. So I try to get their heads in the right place, and we talk about fundamentals and so on. Then we go outside and see if we can capture it outside, and that's gone really, really well. One of
Outstanding.
the things, sorry,
Outstanding.
yeah, one of the things is, where's the men? There's no men. There's never any men. Where are they? I love this. Where are the men? However, so I keep emphasizing this sports competence thing. You know, I have a list of things, and the list can be longer than that, that I discuss with them, and if they want to grow. And some of these people, like I was, are very serious. In their late 50s and 60s, they want to learn how to do this. And so, you know, we talk about steps that I think are necessary to accumulating the knowledge that you need, as well as the craft. And I emphasize this as a big thing. In my early years, it was all about pushing paint. I did a little bit of planning, a little bit of critiquing of my work. Now, this is a little exaggerated, but the emphasis has gone from painting to planning the painting and to critiquing my painting, beating the heck out of them. And that's the knowledge-based stuff, the planning and the critiquing. And as people progress, they've got to accept that it's more than just pushing paint, and they've got to spend time with these wonderful DVDs, your classes, all the information that you share, the books that are out there. There's so much now with YouTube stuff and that.
No, and when, there wasn't a lot out there, 20 years ago. So
There
it's
wasn't a
changed.
lot out there when I started 12 years ago. It was just on the verge. YouTube had
Yeah,
just started.
and you figured out something that a lot of the pros figured out, which really made a huge difference, and that's the planning and critique aspect. A lot of pros will spend a lot of time planning a painting rather than just sitting down at the easel and just starting out with a photograph or something. They're doing sketches, they're doing studies, they're really getting out and playing with different approaches to it rather than just jumping in and then having to fix it all along the way.
Yeah. Your art will not grow unless you invest in that, in both the planning and the critiquing. So I really try to emphasize that.
Yep.
And then about 3 or 4 years ago, as Eric knows, life threw me a curve. My wife at 55 years developed Alzheimer's, and that's really affected what I can do, in the freedom that I have to paint and so on. Eric's gang were very welcoming to me bringing my wife to the Paint the Adirondacks, and I hope I can do that again with her. And the same with going to the plein air convention, that she was invited to come along as well, and that was very kind. But it's changed my life, but it's not totally, I've not moved away from what I do. I just do things differently. But now when I do plein air now becomes sketching for me. My wife cannot be patient with me out for a couple of hours, and she likes to come with me. So I can't spend an hour and a half to 2.5 hours doing my plein airs. I can't wander away from my vehicle, and I sketch. So I go out and I come home with a plan. I think that's 12 by 24. I forget, but it's just a plan. I've done a few sketches. I placed it on my canvas, and I'll come home, and with the photograph and that, I'll try to turn it into something. So that is where I progressed to initially. Then I started doing plein air with gouache. And gouache takes me at least a third of the time it would take me to do a full plein air acrylic or oil. This is such a wonderful medium. I was trained in it at the Watts Atelier. We spent a fair bit of time with gouache, but I hadn't used it for a decade, and it just was so fun. It is just a wonderful way to capture a scene or just get outside and
Why does it
enjoy
take you so much less time? What is it about it?
I don't know. It may be because I'm a layerer. So I with acrylic, I mean, the thing I love about acrylic is what a lot of people don't like. It dries really quickly, and it just can't dry fast enough for me. So I'm a layer, one over the next, and that's what gouache is with it. So I can make a quick sketch. You just put an underpainting on it, and then start bopping in shapes and colors. But my work is very simplistic, right? I don't try to make trees. I make metaphors for trees and metaphors for rocks and so forth. And so I'm not trying to capture accuracy. I'm just trying to lay down shapes and try to get values and get stuff coming forward that should, and stuff going back that should, that kind of thing. So for me, it works out very quickly. I had an old Gorilla box, 9x12 Gorilla box, and I can take absolutely everything I need in that Gorilla box. But from my paints, I've got my water, I've got my Stay Wet palette, I've got my towels, I got my surfaces in the back. Everything's completely in that, plus my little easel, and I'm good to go. Very simple, very light, and I really enjoyed it.
And are you doing gouache on panels?
This is a panel. This is actually MDF board. So I just use regular MDF board, gesso it, and then I spray it with a hairspray to finish it, and then I spray it with a varnish. And
Hairspray is not archival.
No, but
hairspray is not archival.
But I finish it with a varnish.
Oh, with the okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
The hairspray is just an easy way to settle it down.
All right.
And then I put a varnish, an aerosol varnish on it.
Okay.
And I've done some with cold wax as well and so forth. Works okay.
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 Cool.
And this is actually on TerraSkin.
On what?
TerraSkin. TERRA. It's a stone.
Never heard
paper.
of it.
You know, it's not that common, but it's a stone paper and it's really fun to work with. It gained some popularity. It's produced in Montreal by a company there.
Somebody write that down in the comments. TerraSkin.
TERRA skin. Terra Skin.
Right.
That's the product itself. There's different brand names, but it's a really nice surface to work with.
Nice.
So I played with that for a while, and now I've come to this. This is who I am today now in plein air. I have become a digital plein air painter.
Really?
And I really, really enjoy it. This is a little on Plein Air Pro, one of my first plein air easels that I had. And it is a nice little support that fits on a light a tripod. And it's just, I've just had so much pleasure from this. I've invested in some equipment, so I've got some Samsung products. I'm not a Mac guy. I'm not an Apple guy, and so all of the Samsung products have styluses with them. So I've got a 12-inch tablet. I've got my phone has a stylus. I can draw on it. I'll sit in the barber shop and draw different people on that. And I've got a couple of laptops that I can draw on with it. And what's nice is that all of these things, if I draw something on my phone through Dropbox, it'll go to all of my other things, and I can take it home and I can refine it and so on.
Nice.
With it. So there's
and is there a particular program that you use for drawing?
That one. So I have explored over a couple of years all of the ones that are out there that are popular. I've read as much as I could, reviews. I've talked to people in the industry that are working with these things, and I've settled on ArtRage 6.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I've used Procreate and ArtRage.
Yeah. So Procreate is not available for me. I'm an Android Windows guy. And the thing I like about ArtRage is that I can use it on all my platforms. I can use it on my desktop, my tablets, my laptops. And it moves from one to the next with Dropbox. I can be doing something outside and then bang, it's on my desktop when I get home.
Well, this is especially important in your situation where you can't get a lot of time. Now you can lay down color and get yourself some sampling so that you can do things in the field. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
There I go. So this is what I do. I go out and go get, a photograph of the location. And this is how I started mostly. I was just putting in shape, looking at value, color, and trying to come up with some kind of a design. So I mean, I can do these faster than I can set up my paints. And like these are no more than 20, 30 minutes. And so it satisfies me. It satisfies the need for me to shorten up my time. And I can explore. It's kind of a what if thing. I mean, I look at at my image or the reference that I'm painting from outside, and I just play. It's more about color, temperature, and shape than anything, and the things that I'm choosing with it. So it's been really great.
Love it.
I mean, one of the things I really like about it is that it's done in layers. So I can get my shades in to start with, and then add another layer, and I'll start to bring in colors. make another layer and play with
Yep.
different colors, make another layer and play with different colors. And so it's really, I found it really sort of educational and freeing to experiment in a way that I couldn't do it before without any risk
Outstanding.
with it.
You know, there is there's a digital plein air Facebook group, and I think we need to do some more digital at the convention. We've done some. I think it'd be great.
I'm very much a beginner at this stuff. It can get pretty heavy, and my intent is to treat it like I do plein air, which is to try to capture a scene, try to bring home feelings and so on, not to necessarily make a finished painting. But I really like this concept. I can take a layer and I can put in my design, and I can add some underpainting to it. This was a rainy, dull day down at the coast. And this is my second layer, and you can still see the lines where my sketch was, and it's dull and rainy and so on. And then I've got another layer, and I've taken out my lines, so now you see just the dull day. And all of a sudden, the darn sun came out, so I make another layer and add the warmer, brighter, happier temperatures over
so
top.
Now you can flip between layers and you've now got 2 or 3 different studies that you can use in the studio.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Bring that
great
home.
idea.
A few photographs. I've experimented with colors and played. This is an iconic tree that's out at the coast. This is about a 20-minute quick sketch, and it's all one brush and just changing the size of the brush to bang this thing in.
Love it.
And this is a plein air that I did out there in an earlier year, just sort of as a comparison. This probably took me an hour and a half, and this took me 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And, my wife is sitting on the bench. She's enjoying a good time watching me do this and chatting to people, and we're gone.
Yeah.
And I've come home. I've had the feel. I got outside. I had the fresh air. I've got the feel of it. I come home, and it's good. It's good.
And then you can make a studio piece out of it.
That's the intent. So now, I do more and more of them. I'm getting a little more sophisticated, but I've got a lot of growing to do. And I try. I'm not worried about making a painting per se, just capturing as much as I can out there and bringing them home. And I basically just work with one at most 2 brushes, so to try to make it easy and fast.
And do you find that you use one of your devices more than the others?
I use my tablet a lot because of the convenience, but the program is not as deep or sophisticated as it is with my laptop.
Okay.
With the laptop, I've got a laptop that it flips over. So this laptop flips over, and so I can turn it into a tablet if I want, but I can make it go flat. So I have it straight, and the top and bottom are like that. So I've got my keys down here, and I've got my drawing surface here. So I can use my keys to quickly make changes in there, and there's an advantage to that. And the program is more sophisticated than the program that comes with the mobiles.
Okay, terrific.
But there's advantages to each. The size of that is a wonderful little 12-inch guy, just wonderful to work with.
And I would imagine you're drawing on this presentation on that tablet now as we speak.
Yep, just about. If we have time, we will.
Okay.
And then, of course, the big crunch came this year. It was going to be my big year. It was the things were coming up to me that I just never expected I would have the opportunity to participate in, and I was really down and disappointed when all of this canceled, as everybody else was. But I ended up having the best time I've had in years with COVID. COVID's been wonderful for me, and I'm embarrassed to say that. But I spent 4 months of wonderful weather on Vancouver Island doing digital plein air. I made 50 little, portrait sketches of friends and family and people that I know with it. And it was just play. I had 4 months of play, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Nice.
You feel guilty when everybody else has got such difficulty with it. And then it forced a rethink. We're almost there, Eric. Forced a rethink of my teaching. So I lost eight live workshops this past year that were planned for me, and I enjoyed the teaching a lot, and so I was disappointed with that. And one of the workshops, a group from Ottawa got a hold of me and asked if I would consider doing an online one, and I had no idea. I had never heard of Zoom. I knew nothing about it, and we tried it. and it wasn't bad. There were problems with it, and so I invested in some equipment. I sort of announced that I'd be happy to do a free workshop for half a dozen people, and I did that. And so I got people to give me feedback, to critique what I was doing. I had to upgrade some of my equipment and so on. I had to buy new lights and all that kind of stuff, a new camera that allows me to zoom in and, they can see brush strokes and so forth with it. And now it's to the point that it is really fun for me. And I get very positive feedback from people because they can see things that they can't see in a big room watching other people paint.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of like what we experienced at the plein air convention is,
Yep.
you can see it on the big screen. You go to a workshop, and I love workshops, but, unless you're the person in the right chair behind the artist, you don't see anything.
Yep. So what I do is partner. I do 3-hour sessions, and I can do 3 in a row, or I'll do 1 a week for 6 weeks, whatever. I partner with that, and I partner with I use that and partner it with Facebook. So we each workshop is a Facebook group for 10 days, and so they can send me their paintings and so on. We critique it, we chat, we share. I share some of your videos with them. It's working really well. I'm really enjoying it. And
Congratulations.
the thing that's unique is that I can do things in these workshops that I could not do before in a regular workshop. I can pull things into the software that I use to manipulate my my images, which is ACDC Ultimate. The Art Rage, we'll pull a painting in, or I'll pull their paintings in and critique them and make changes on their painting with it. That works really well. I'm a big fan of Notenizer, and we always pull their paintings in with that, and we can show them live online, how these things are working with it. And it's okay. I'm actually like, this is the right thing for me at this stage and with the circumstances of my life, and I'm excited for the growth that this is experiencing with me, and I'm enjoying it a lot.
What a great story.
So it's fun. So I don't know what we have for time. I can walk you through quickly what I would do with an image, but we might be getting tight here.
Well, we can give you a couple more minutes, but it's going to be tight.
Okay, well, I'll bang through this just quickly, if I may. So this is a typical photograph. This is a December day on Vancouver Island, dull, cloudy, and this is what it's like. So don't come to Vancouver Island. Do not tell your friends to come to Vancouver Island. It's always raining and it's miserable. That's what we tell everybody anyhow. So this is where we start. And beyond here is the ocean, Pacific Ocean, and the mainland mountains are on the other side, but you can't see them with it. But this is sort of kind of a nice typical scene. So what I would do with this, if this is just sort of typical of how I would approach a painting. I would suck it into ACDC Ultimate 21, and I would pull it into Notenizer, and I would use Notenizer to look at the values. If folks aren't familiar with Notenizer, it's an app that is available for both iOS and for Android, only on mobile devices, and it is terrific. It's expensive. I think it's about $2, and it is really, really helpful. You can look at your images in color and in all sorts of different degrees of right from a no-tan, black and white, to different value grades. And so we always do this and look at different possibilities. It's a good one.
Okay.
And then, so this is an example. So I pulled this in here. This is what I started with. And very simply, this is a simple approach. Some of these things spend a lot of time on. But I've just taken this area and I've extended that out there to create a lead line. I've gotten rid of the trees out there, and I'm going to pop in.
Okay.
And I would do that with Art Rage. I would take it into that and make those changes. I would look at shape and values and so forth in Art Rage, and look at possibilities with it. And then this is kind of what I would do. I've sort of placed my go-to spot over there. I've got my lead line in. I put some color in the sky. I brought that color down into the water. I darkened the water here and lightened the water up there. I've given warmth and punch to these colors here. And these I've done the other day for this, and this is a 24 by 24. And this is a great quote for me for the work that I do. In spite of everything I do to plan, the destination reveals itself as I go forward. And so, these are sort of what I would call starts. They're quick bang-ins. They go out to my family room. They get put in frames. They hang. I critique them, let them sit for days or weeks or minutes before I change them. I look at them under different lighting conditions, and then they go out from there. So that's it. And that's my
Spoken like
lovely
a
wife.
true scientist, you have taken a really interesting scientific approach to things, which is your background, and you've just completely changed your life, which is really amazing. In the short amount of time that you got to the high level of accomplishment, and that's pretty amazing, Brian. Pretty amazing.
It's a wonderful adventure. I've really enjoyed it. I've been very lucky to find this at this stage of my life, and I'm so pleased to share it with other people, particularly seniors that need something, and they don't have to commercialize it. They just need to want it.
Well, we should tell people to find your website, which is brianbuckrell.com. And that's probably where they can find out about your Zooms and all of those other things. And actually, that'll be great because there are people who normally wouldn't be able to go to one of your workshops live, but they'll be able to attend. And of course, we're going to have you to the plein air convention when it happens, assuming that all goes well. And we're excited about that. And we'll probably cook up a couple other things between us too, because that's what we like to do. Brian, thank you so much for being on today. You're an inspiration. I think everybody on the comments is inspired. Applause, thumbs up for Brian. Terrific today.
Thank you.